one of the things that became obvious pretty quickly was that I was going to need to be strong, right? We've all seen through the nature of what we do how somebody in a wheelchair has to navigate life. You know, transferring into a car, transferring into another chair or whatever it could take some strength. So I knew that I was going to have to stay in as best shape as I could possibly be, in the best shape that I could be in. And the best way that I knew to do that was through swimming. We got any swimmers here this morning? Yeah, there's a few of you there. Probably be a few more. Oh, I would have thought there'd be a few more after how well Phelps is doing in the pool. Wow. Surely some of you are thinking about taking up swimming. Because I'm telling you, where I grew up, most of us are swimming before we can walk. Right? We have to be. We're surrounded by ocean. So I'd always been a swimmer, and I thought that's a no-brainer. I got to start swimming again. Now, that's all well and good, but there's a few obstacles in the way before I can make this happen. To give you an idea, I'm going to tell you about the first time I took a bath after this happened. Right? We all know that to take a bath when you use a wheelchair, you have to transfer across to the bath board and then lower yourself down into the tub. What's the first thing that happens when you lower yourself down into the bathtub? When you sit down in the tub? You slip. Eventually. Not straight away. Well, the first thing that happens if you're me is you've made it too hot. Right? After 42 years, you'd think that I'd figured out what temperature to run a bath at, but no, I still haven't got that one dialed. But no, the first thing, you've made it too hot. But no, the first thing that happens when you sit down in the tub is you displace the water, and it's a bit like when you throw a pebble in a pond and you send a ripple out, right? You displace the water. So as I sat down, a little ripple, a little half-inch wave of water went out from me, hit the other end of the tub, turned around, came straight back at me, knocked me straight over. There I am, flat on my back in the tub, coughing and spluttering, grab the sides, sit up, and there's only one thought going through my mind, and that is, you have got to be kidding. You've got to be kidding. You want to be a swimmer again, and you just got knocked over by a half-inch wave of water. Boy, have you got some work to do. All right, so I started working on my balance, and eventually I got to the stage where I started swimming laps in a swimming pool, and eventually got to the point where I was swimming a kilometre. And a little light bulb goes off, thinking, wow, if I can swim a kilometre already, maybe I could swim the pier to pub. Pier as in jetty, pub as in pub. Now, the pier to pub is an ocean race that's held in a small town a few hours outside of Melbourne, and it's, what is it? It's 1.2 kilometres, which, what is that in miles? Let's just say 3/4 of a mile. It's far enough. And it starts at the pier and it goes across a stretch of open water to a pub on the other side. Now, we're not stupid down there. How many people do you think would want to swim a race called the pub to pier? Not many. We're just not interested. But you put the pub at the other end, thousands and thousands of people every year go and swim the pier to pub. Right? Anybody who thinks they're a swimmer, they need to swim this thing. In my age group alone, 732 guys. And there are heats running pretty much every half hour. Right, just one after the other. If there were 10,000 people swim this race, I would not be surprised. My age group, 732. So there we are. It's our turn to swim. We make our way down the boat ramp beside the pier. I jump out of my chair and I shuffle on my backside into the shallow water, and I pull on the swimming cap because I've got to keep the hair under control. I get that on, snap the goggles into place, and just as I'm snapping the goggles on, bang! Starter gun goes off, and we're off. 732 thrashing maniacs, all trying to get in front of each other. I'll tell you what it was like. It was like being in a washing machine. It was like being in a washing machine with 731 guys. I'm telling you, I'm getting my goggles clawed off. I'm getting kicked in the face. Really unhappy about being kicked in the face because I couldn't kick anybody back. And I've obviously still got an issue with that. But what we're trying to do, we're trying to get some space so that we can just have some room around us just to swim. And eventually the field sort of spreads out, and I get that. I get to just focus on being a swimmer, because that's what I've gone there to do. I'm not interested in being the guy with no legs. When I'm in the water, people can't really tell that I haven't got any legs. Except maybe the guy that kicked me in the face, and now I've just overtaken him and he's thinking, I'm sure I just kicked that guy in the face. Why isn't he kicking me back? Except for that guy, nobody can really tell. So I get to focus on what I've gone there to do, to swim. 20 minutes later, I start moving towards the shallow water. I'm looking up the whole time I'm swimming to make sure I'm still, because swimming in the ocean is quite different from swimming in the swimming pool, for those of you that have done it. So what I'm heading for is 2 flagpoles that mark the finish line. And I can see in front of me, as the water gets shallow, guys are standing up and they're doing that funny run with the legs out to the side that you have to do in the shallow water. And they're heading up through the finish line between these 2 flagpoles. I hit the shallow water, I flip up onto my backside, and I start shuffling on my backside up the beach towards the finish line. Now, there's tens of thousands of people watching the end of this race. And up at the front are all the young kids that need to be at the front so that they could see. And there's thousands of young school-aged children there that are at the front watching as I make my way up the beach. And I'll tell you, I will never forget the looks on some of their faces as I made my way to the finish line that day. So I can pretty much guarantee some of them have never swum in the ocean since. Now, I'm not usually a bad guy, but I got to admit, it crossed my mind to roll around in the sand, hanging onto my legs, screaming out, "Shark!" But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it to them. I didn't have to do it to them. They were freaked. They were absolutely freaked. I'm telling you, some of them have never swum in the ocean since. Now, what I didn't realise at that time is that they weren't the only ones that were a little freaked. All right, what I didn't realise at that point was out of 732 guys, I'd come in number 473. I'd left 259 people behind me to have a think about the fact that they'd just been beaten by a guy with no legs. Right, it gave them something to think about. Now, could I have done that if I had gone into that race thinking, I wonder how I'm going to go, no legs and all? Right? I don't think so. I went into that race, I was on a mission. I was leaving at least one person behind me. I didn't care who it was. But I was absolutely not coming last because I'm a swimmer. Right? And I'd gone into that race as a swimmer. You know how we see this bandied about at times, this statement, what you see is what you get? You know, people throw that out there, it's what you see is what you get. Right? It doesn't cut it for me. Right? It's not what you see. It's how you see is what you get. It's how you see that determines your reality. It's how you see that determines your results. How I saw myself going into that race is what allowed me to leave so many people behind me. Do you know what? Those people weren't the only ones that were freaked out when this was all said and done. I actually found out afterwards that I swam the Pier pub that year faster than I had with 2 legs 10 years before. Still blows me away. Now, I know what you swimmers are thinking. Boy, you must have had a terrible kick. Guilty.